Hi everybody, and welcome to our module looking at automated deployments using the SQL change automation extensions. Now we're particularly focusing on TFS, but remember you can use the plugins or the add-ons for various different release management and continuous integration tools. So you don't have to work in TFS, use the tool that makes sense for you. Of course, as well as these add-ons, we also provide the PowerShell commandlets, which can be embedded in pretty much any tool that can call PowerShell. What can't call PowerShell these days? So let's jump straight into this next class, which is all about how we can define the creation of a database release. And that database release is ultimately the artifact that's going to be used to deliver that change out to our target environment later on. Now, I'm going to head back into TFS here. This is where we defined our build process earlier. But instead of adding a build definition, this time I'm going to create a new release definition. So I've just gone in here to the Releases tab, and I'm going to click on this New Definition button to give me the opportunity to create my new release pipeline. Now again, I could use a template, but I'm actually going to start with an empty process, and I'm going to specify that my environment name in this case is my testing environment. So here you can see that block's now labeled testing. The first thing I want to do is specify where to find the artifacts that I'm going to use to produce the release artifact. And that's actually the package that comes out of our build. So here, if I go over to artifacts and click add, you'll see that I can specify my Redgate University CI build as the source, and therefore I can just add this as the artifact source so that we can grab the package that's produced out of that process and pass that over to this release definition. Now, I'm able to define a number of different tasks when deploying those changes out to my testing environment. And so if I just click on this link, you'll see I have this agent phase, which I can use the plus button, just like I did in my build definition, to add Redgate specific tasks to. So let's add a new task, and once again search for SQL change automation. But this time, instead of using that build task, I'm going to use a release task. So let's add a release task. And again, it tells me that some settings need my attention. In this case, it's really just asking for that database package, the package that's being produced by the build that we defined in the last module. Now, of course, there's lots of different operations that I can choose from. I can create a database release artifact, deploy from that artifact, even deploy changes from a live database. But the approach we're going to use is to create this database release artifact based off of the package that came from our Redgate University CI build. And so we're just going to point to that database build artifact folder and click OK. Now there's some additional options that we can change around the way that this comparison and deployment takes place. So if you want to configure any options around the comparison, then by all means check out the documentation page of the SQL compare options that you can apply to your project. But I'm going to proceed with just the defaults for now. Typically, they're all we need to get started. And now I'm going to specify my target SQL Server instance. So, of course, my target database is going to be my Redgate University testing database, which we can see here in SQL Server Management Studio, Redgate University _testing. Now, that's on my local SQL Server instance. So let's specify the local instance and also add our Redgate University _testing database. And then finally, we just add our username and our password. Now, of course, I could add these username and password values as secure variables so that we don't have them here in plain text. But I'm just doing this quickly so you guys can get up and running as quick as possible. So let's save this process. And there we have it. So we now have the first stage of our pipeline. So when we have a successful build, we want this to automatically trigger the creation of a release to our testing environment. Now, next up, of course, we're going to have to use the release that we've created to carry out the deployment to our Redgate University testing database. And then in future classes, we're going to look at how we can do something very similar to deploy that change all the way to our production database. But for now, thanks very much for watching.